I thought I couldn't find my way out. Yeah, I searched the God in me to find my way out. I know it can seem way out, but the Creator flows to and through me from way out. I'm talking way out, way out. Yeah, yeah, yeah. See, if you believe in the God in you, it's a better place. Creating the force and the power to live a better. Just know that love and joy and peace is one in all of the same space. That you were chosen just like God. That's right. Only you can make the change. Shine your head at you. Shine so bright from darkness to light. From darkness to light. Yeah. And you'll find your way out. Oh, it won't seem way out. The power of God will flow through you from way out. You'll feel it from deep within, and from there you can begin.
First of all, I want to thank you so much, and thank you guys for inviting us. This is an awesome tool. Very, very quickly, I am the Democratic nominee for Texas House of Representatives in District 65. 65 is Southern Denton County. That's Flower Mound, Carrollton, some of the larger cities that you may have heard of. Carrollton, Hebron. I have a little bit of Dallas. I actually have a little bit of Fort Worth too. In there, and a lot of smaller little areas like Draper and Lantana and Justin, what have you. But anyway, pretty much what a little bit about myself. I live in the Colony, Texas, first of all. I've been a planning and zoning commissioner in the Colony, Texas for the last 9 years. Been the vice chair of that for 7 years. And even before then, I was a planning and zoning commissioner in Cedar Hill, Texas. So basically, I say that to say that I've been behind the scenes for about the last 18 years, pretty much helping North Texas manage its exponential growth, which we've seen all around Texas, but especially in North Texas. With that said, I'm seeing how difficult it is for our elected officials, the local ones, our mayors, our city council people, our county commissioners, how more complicated it's becoming to actually manage the growth that they're experiencing, simply because the people in Austin, well, simply don't understand how cities grow. And so I plan to bring that to the table. With that said, specifically, primarily, I am focused on us funding public education. My mother's a retired teacher. My daughter was a teacher, and we have to fund public schools. End of discussion, case closed, period. More importantly, or secondly, we pay into Medicaid just like everybody else in the country. However, I don't think we maximize it. Hence, I think we need to expand Medicaid, especially in the state of Texas. We need to allow Texans to get the return on those federal dollars that they pay into the system. They need to be able to get them out. And then also, I'm a gun sense candidate, meaning that I take into consideration the idea of gun violence and an impact of any policy, for that matter, on gun violence. Those are kind of some of like my main primary issues that I'm focusing on. But let me say something very, very quickly. First of all, I'm very excited, especially over the last 24 hours. Very, very excited. Not only do we have the opportunity to make history, right? Just as Democrats as a whole, right? I'm expecting some new energy really, really getting into the race, okay? With that said, I think the decision that we all have in November is actually a very easy one. Usually when we're looking at electoral politics and policy, it's all about, do you lean right or do you lean left? That's not the question in November. It's, are you going to act right or act wrong? It's not a function of right or left. It's a function of right and wrong. And that makes it easy for us, right? Because regardless of whether you lean right politically or lean left, you always want to act right versus act wrong. With that said, I think our governor has gone so far to the right that he's wrong. And I think his buddy, our Attorney General, Warren Paxton, has gone so far to the right that he's now wrong. And my opponent, who, by the way, defended our AG in his impeachment, has gone so far to the right that they're now wrong. That makes it a very, very easy decision for us, okay? And so with that said, in November, I think it's all about simply doing the work. I just had a conversation with some people yesterday, and I said, I'm not going to Austin to fight for anything. And the reason I'm not going to fight for anything is because I know how to do the work. And when you know how to do the work, you don't have to fight. You just simply go to work. And that's exactly what I intend to do. So I appreciate everybody on the call for you doing your work, because that inspires me to do my work. And here's the thing, and I'll be quiet with this. What I'm learning is, regardless of what happens at the top of the ticket, we still have the facts on our side. We still have freedom on our side, right? And when it's all said and done, if we simply just do the work, we tend to win. So let's just simply continue to do the work. With that said, you can find me on the web. I'm at deburrfortexas.com. That's spelled DEBURRFORTEXAS.com. We need all the support that we can get. But with that support, I can promise you, right, it will fuel us to do the work. And when we do the work, trust me, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to win. So thank you so much for hearing me, and reach out to me. I'd love to support and stay engaged as any way I possibly can. Thank you so much for the opportunity. God bless you guys.
Welcome, welcome. Well, this is Dr. Michael Energy, and I am so happy to announce our guest. I'm really proud to have known him for so many years. I know him as a software engineer. I met him a long time ago in the startup world, and I was actually a developer for his app. Well, not a developer, a designer. I worked with him very closely on his app, and he became a software engineer too. Now he's running for the House. So without further ado, let me introduce you to Detrick Deburr.
Good evening. Good evening. Wow. Good evening. It's interesting.
A good introduction. I really like.
That's why I asked. I said, "Where'd you get that from?" I hadn't seen that.
Oh, really?
Right. I had not seen that. Obviously we did it. And the interesting part is we did it, a little over 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Or better yet, in 2024, because I'm talking about November and we're going into 2026. What I found interesting, it's amazing when you hear yourself, and reflect on what you talked about. In that discussion with Blue Texas, I said this was an easy decision, right? And I also said that this was about right and wrong versus right and left, i.e. versus, right-leaning politics or left-leaning politics. And it's amazing because at the end of the day, we know exactly how things turned out. Things turned out, unfortunately, in a way that I don't think worked for us. Now, here's the beautiful part about this, right? I am not calling, because I am running again in Texas for Texas House District 65, same seat. It looks like we're pretty much going to be up against the same candidate. So this is a do-over. So I'm not calling this an election. I'm calling it a correction. This is an opportunity for not only, people in District 65 and the people in the state of Texas, but people around the country to correct the mistake that I personally think they made in November of 2024. We'll get that opportunity in November of 2026. And that's how I'm running. That's what I intend. And that's what we're going to do.
Right. So what is the main platform that you're running on? And I know that you talked about education. Yes. Is that one of the main platforms?
Right. The priorities have not changed. The way I communicate it is that my focus in Austin will be on public education and private economies. That's how I frame it. And what that means is that we have to fairly fund public education, and we can get into what that actually looks like and what that means. And then we also have to look at private economies. Now, why private economies? If you recall, or just revert back to what I was saying 2 years ago, is that we did not expand Medicaid in Texas. We have a big affordability issue here in Texas. I don't know if you knew this or not, but Texas leads the country in financial stress. There was a study done by NerdWallet in February of 2025, looking at things like bankruptcies, looking at things like people going into what I call debt consolidation, looking at people who were literally Googling things like debt and how to manage it, as well as people whose credit scores had dropped by a certain percentage, right? And then they ranked all of these things. And so they used this criteria. They weighted things like credit scores dropping, increase in bankruptcies a little higher. And then they looked at what percentage of people in particular states had these characteristics, and Texas led. Florida was number 2. What does that mean? That means that the state of Texas, people in the state of Texas, are experiencing the most financial stress out of any other state. Now, what makes that so interesting, and I was talking about this last night, is that when you hear the governor talk, and for the most part, Texas as a state is doing very well economically. It still has what I'll call statewide economic drivers, and I can talk about what those are a little bit more. But here's the issue: what you have is you have a welfare state driven by donor cities. Let me say that again. You have a welfare state driven by donor cities. And so what does that look like? That looks like the state of Texas doing very, very well because the city of Houston is doing very, very well, or the city of Dallas is doing very, very well, or the city of El Paso is doing very, very well, or the city of Austin or San Antonio. Does that make sense? Whereas you take a city like Lufkin, for example, and I'm just picking a city off the top of my head, or Wichita Falls, those cities are struggling and unable to carry themselves. But the reason that these are donor cities is because these are huge metropolitan metropolises. They have a lot of what I call community assets, meaning that Dallas, for example, is able to attract, for example, American Airlines or Southwest Airlines. Houston is able to attract, a lot of business, oil companies and what have you. And more importantly, and this is probably the bigger issue, especially when I think about places like Corpus Christi and El Paso, one of the number one drivers in any state is the demographics. Meaning you still have people coming, right? You have young people coming and wanting to work. And so Texas is situated very, very, very uniquely. And outside of Arizona and California, it shares the largest border with another country. So when we think about all the trade with the United States between between Mexico and the United States, 40 to almost 50% of that trade actually goes through Texas, right? So Texas, just by being situated at where it is benefiting from its relationship with Mexico, number one. Number two, these 3 to 4, what I call major hubs. You got Dallas and Houston, both at 9 million people, steadily attracting young people to the area. So what's the issue? Where am I going with this? What's happening is that this dynamic, being quote unquote a welfare state, meaning the state doesn't give nearly as much back to these cities as the cities give to the state, right? Over time, what that begins to do is put more and more and more financial strain on the people in those cities, right? And I think we're about at the point where people are starting to feel that, and we're feeling it in our pocketbooks. And that's what the financial stresses are all about. So when I get to Austin, we'll definitely deal with what I call fair public education funding, because I think that's fundamental. Whether you have a kid in school or not, whether you send your kid to private school or not, fully funding your public school is an anchor, and more importantly, it's a sign of economic stability in any area.
So let's discuss like the issue with the private school, with private versus public schools.
Sure.
What is actually the issue when you talk about schooling? When you say that that's your platform, why is that an important
Right. Okay.
platform?
Well, first of all, let me start with this. Whether you because I let me disclaimer. I served on the board of a private school for almost 5-6 years. Okay, so so they have their place. Okay, in charter schools they have their place, but the overwhelming number of people, right, in the state of Texas and in any state are going to attend the public schools. The overwhelming number of people that if you had a business that you were going to hire probably went to public schools. The overwhelming number of people, right, are ultimately going to be people who went to public schools. That's number one. So most people, even if there are private schools, there are not enough private schools for every kid to go to, even if you could afford them. That's number one. Number two, there's a thing that's called communal good. So there are assets in any community that make that community attractive, right? So when people go shopping for a home, right, one of the main drivers of the value of a home is the school system. So imagine a young couple, they're buying their first home or their second home, and they have a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old. Can you imagine if they have to choose between two neighborhoods on where they're going to purchase a home and raise their child? They are, trust me, that one of their biggest questions is how are the schools? Okay.
Right, I
And
know that was my that was
that's common sense. That's common sense. And so, and here's the thing: even if you're currently sending your kid to private school, right, you still want to ensure that your public schools are solid and sound, right? Because those public schools and that public school system is going to affect your property value. So let's just take an example. Let's say you're fortunate enough to send your child to private school. Okay, the value of your home will go up and or down relative to the quality of the school system. So what I'm talking about is your personal financial wealth will be disproportionately impacted by, I mean, we look at the square footage in the neighborhood and all that kind of stuff. But the next question is, how are the schools? So my point is, if you disinvest in the main asset that's driving up the value or driving down the value of your home, that's what makes public schools extremely valuable. They are community assets. That's number two. Number three is that in our Constitution in Texas, Article 7 says that we will fully fund free public education. It's a part of the Texas Constitution. Okay, so the reason we collect sales taxes, the reason we collect property taxes is so that we can make sure that at the end of the day, every young person has a fair and equitable educational system that they can attend. And right now, that's not the case. Right now, that's not the case. And that has to be fixed.
I've also noticed that a lot of public schools are closing.
Yeah.
Frisco just closed a middle school. What do you think is driving that? I mean, some people will say it's because of the low birth rate or whatever, or it's a lack of money. You know, the people that had kids at one point in that area have now grown up, and so now there's no new kids coming through that school system. What is the actual real reason why Frisco, for instance, or different places in Texas are closing down elementary and middle schools?
Yeah, and Louisville too is too. Okay, well let's ask a simple question for starters. We don't close things that we can afford. Let's start right there, right? Right. So here's my point. My point is that the primary reason they're closing them is because they're trying to conserve money. Now, the way that's communicated a lot of time is, well, the enrollment is dropping. Well, the enrollment is dropping everywhere. Okay, the United States of America is a zero birth rate. So why isn't, if that's the case, why isn't it in that every state is closing schools? They're not. Okay. So my point is we're closing schools because number one, we base, which I think is flawed. We base public school basic allotment funding on attendance. Well, if you have fewer kids attending, then you get less money. And you do that for a few years. Eventually, as a school board, you have to decide how you're going to use those slim dollars that you have. And so they look at consolidating schools, right? So my point is, let's say a school that initially had 500 kids now has 400 kids. That's not a reason to close the school. especially if you have the money. That's not a reason to close the school, right? So you will hear it communicated like, oh, we closed it because the enrollment dropped. But the real question is, when the enrollment drops, the money gets less. There you go. It's a math problem. Does that make sense?
So basically, they're closing down because there's not enough money. You know, the same.
Let's say it correctly, because there is enough money. They don't have enough money. Let me be very clear. The state of Texas has what's called a rainy day fund, right? The rainy day fund today, last time I checked, and you can Google this to make sure, has $29 billion in it with a B. Let me repeat that again. The state of Texas has a rainy day fund. It has $29 billion in it with a B. So in the state of Texas, we cannot make the claim that we don't have the money. Now, the school board might not have the money. Got it, right? But that doesn't mean the money doesn't exist. So the question is, why isn't that the resources that we sent to Austin, i.e. that $29 billion and stuff, why isn't it coming back to the schools? That's the question. Because we sent it there, right? We sent it to Austin to be used for public good. We sent it to Austin to make sure that our roads are taken care of, to make sure that, especially our state highways. We sent it there to make sure that, you know, our cities can do what they need to do. We sent it there to make sure that our public schools have what they need. So why is it that they're not getting the money back? Those are those decisions are made in the state house, quite honestly.
And that's exactly why you're running.
That's exactly why I'm running. You know, and I'll get into I just for the sake, because we do have time. You know, I'll get into the weeds of it, and I don't want to get too deep. But basically, when you think about, and I'll oversimplify some of it for the sake of discussion. When we think about where a school gets money, okay, and how it gets funded, first of all, they have what's called a basic allotment. That's the base amount of money that they get for a kid that attends the class, right? Attends, right? Well, first of all, I think there's a flaw there, okay? Because what happens if they don't attend? What happens if they get sick? What happens? And I'm saying, so we should be based on enrollment. That's one problem, okay? All right? But that's neither here nor there. So step number, it needs to be based on enrollment. So let's say, for example, they take an enrollment account after school starts in say August, and at the end of September, they say, this is our enrollment. Our enrollment is 500 kids. I believe they should get funded for 500 kids, whether they got 500, 495, 492, 390, it doesn't matter. And here's the reason why. Because it costs the same amount of money to run that school building with 500 kids as it does for 400 kids. The air conditioner, right, is not cheaper with 400 kids. If the bus that's running has 35 kids on it, or it has 3 kids on it, that bus costs the same. The gas costs the same. The driver costs the same. So you're trying to tell me just because I got 3 kids on the bus, you only gonna give me money for 3 kids? The cost of the bus hasn't changed. Only the number of kids on the bus has changed, right? So this notion of this whole enrollment and all that kind of stuff, quite honestly, I think is disingenuous. Okay. Now, anyway, let me go back to the basic allotment just to speak to the point. The basic allotment in Texas right now, and I'm rounding the number for the sake of discussion. We could Google the exact number. It's around $700 per student. Okay. Around 700, might be a little bit between 700 and 800. Now, here's the issue with that. It costs about $1,300. Okay, think about that. There's $700 that's sent, but the school district has to find another $600 from somewhere. Okay, so now where does that money come from? That money, some of it comes from property taxes, right? Because school districts do have the ability to tax properties, right? So when you pay your mortgage, right, and you get a property tax bill, a portion of that property tax bill goes to the school district, right? And a lot of the complaints that a lot of people are making in Texas are, man, the property taxes keep going up and going up and going up and going up. We have to ask the question, why is the school district coming every other year asking you for more money and more money and more money and more money? Okay. And my answer to that is because the cost is going up. Okay. The cost of insuring the building is going up. The cost to run the school buses is going up. Okay. The cost of teacher salaries should be going up. It's not going up nearly fast enough, but that's the second part of the money. And then there's federal money, and federal money generally comes to a school through the Department of Education, which, by the way, is under attack, right? which is literally being dismantled, but for special case types of students. For example, students with disabilities, for example, students who have issues with learning disabilities, and the federal government, right, provides these types of these funds. So in essence, if you're a school board member, okay, you're going to get approximately $700, $800 from the state. You're going to get some from the property taxes, and then you hope to get the rest from the federal government. And that's kind of how you pay the bills. Okay, if you're lucky. Now, what my point is that where do we start? Because we need to fix this whole thing. But there's one piece at a time. What I think we have to do is we have to start with that basic allotment. Okay, that basic allotment, in my opinion, must and should be tied to inflation. And if you think about it like this, in 2017 was the last time they had a basic allotment increase, right? But the cost of pencils went up, the cost of gas went up, right? The cost of insurance went up. Everything else went up. The only difference is you gave them the same amount of money. Now, come on now, let's be fair. Let's be fair. So, I mean, even in our jobs, we get what's called a cost of living raise, hopefully every year, to kind of sort of keep up with inflation. What I'm telling you is school boards are not getting that. And then you turn around and you complain that they're not teaching your kid and they're not paying the teachers right. Okay. And all I'm saying is let's start. This is not the end of it, but this is the beginning of it. We must peg that basic allotment to inflation. At a minimum, I think that should be at least $1,000 at a bare minimum. Because if you rank Texas overall as it relates to basic allotments for public education, we're in the bottom 10. We're in the bottom 10. We're in the bottom 10.
Man, you're breaking down. And I wanted to also welcome another politician, Calvin Johnson, in the house. And I wanted to surprise you with his presence because I said, I talked to you about him. You said, yes. I remember him. I think I've seen him before. So welcome to the panel. Also, Calvin Johnson. Are you running this year as well?
No, I decided against running, but man, Detrick, I'm listening to you, man. You're nailing all of the points. One of the things that I used to do, I used to represent the largest teachers union in the state, which is Alliance AFT Dallas. We had the largest membership. We were almost in 10,000 members between teachers and support staff. And so I definitely understand everything that you're talking about in terms of funding and in terms of the way that the state tries to attempt to set us up to fail when it comes to public education by not providing the correct funding and then putting in policies that are not going to help teacher retention, and they're not going to keep up with the times because you don't have the money. At the end of the day, you have to have the money to be able to keep up with the times, and you have to have the policy that is going to support your staff, your teachers, and more importantly, the children. So I appreciate your great understanding of what's happening, because when I talk to some people about what you're talking about, it's like they think that you're speaking Greek. They don't understand that there is a long-term plan to try to fail public education, and that they're doing it right in our faces. I remember when I went to battle with Mike Miles here in Dallas, they had 13 attorneys, plus what the district had, and I had just me and my staff at Alliance, and we were able to fight off them trying to get rid of our older educators. And the way they were doing it by changing policies and targeting teachers with the most amount of experience. And see, these are the kind of things I talk about. How is public education going to survive and prosper when you're taking away its most experienced educators? How are they going to survive and prosper when you're setting out policy that is not going to allow those teachers to be able to be retained? And those are the things that you're getting to, but you're basically nipping those things in the head.
Well, here's what I want you to share. It seems like tell people. I think you can hear me.
Yes, I can.
Can you hear me okay?
I do. Okay.
Tell people where Mike Miles is today.
He's down there in Houston wreaking havoc. and it's funny, he was in Dallas. Now he's down there in Houston wreaking havoc. And I actually got a call from the union people down in Houston because they were wondering, well, what did you do when y'all at Alliance went to war with him and we fought him? And thank God we were able to get him up out of here. And he did a lot of damage to education in Dallas because he got rid of a lot of our core legacy teachers that knew the parents, the grandparents, and the children. And people don't understand legacy educators are important because they know the families, they have contacts and relationships with the community that are important. And that's part of all the communities that we're in. And when you go somewhere, you talk about moving, you want to move to a community that has stability. Stability is teachers that have been at the school for a long time, a principal that has been at the school for a while, a support staff that knows the community. Those are the kinds of things that in public education that they're trying to wipe out, especially in our urban areas. And we need to be extremely careful about it because if you notice, they targeted Dallas, didn't work. Now they're targeting Houston. These are two, and I want to help people understand this. Dallas and Houston are the fourth and fifth largest metropolitan areas in the
In the
United
country.
States. People need to understand when it comes to Dallas, Dallas as a metropolitan area actually is larger than Houston because of all the suburbs.
Right.
In 3 to 5 years, Dallas and Houston will be the third and the fourth, surpassing Chicago in terms of metropolitan areas. So you're talking about extremely large public education school systems, and they're treating it like a petri dish. They're going to treat Dallas and Houston as a petri dish for what they're going to try to do in the rest of the country. And so we need to understand that because their plans are long term. Their plans of 10, 20 years in advance. And we need to understand that we're in the midst of that now, especially in Houston.
Right. You know, there's a great book called They Came for the Schools. I'm trying to think of the author right now, but he talks about how Colleyville, and just to put this in context, this is not just in the state of Texas. There is a dismantling of the Department of Education. Okay, the Department of Education. I see I'm locking up again, so I'll keep talking. But my point is that this is a bigger issue. So when I hear people say I'm not into politics, if you have a baby that's in school, you in politics. If your baby's an adult and they marry somebody that didn't go to private school and went to public school, you in politics. Okay, right? You are in politics. And more importantly, they are taking your dollars, right? Your dollars and disinvesting it because they're still sitting down there. Like I said, I was mentioned earlier, we have a $29 billion rainy day fund. And as far as public schools are concerned, it's raining. They just took over Lake Worth ISD. Louisville ISD just closed 4 schools. There are other schools around the country that are being closed. And what they will say is that, well, you know, its enrollment is dropping. Well, my point is enrollment is dropping everywhere around the country, man. Okay, everywhere, right? People are having fewer children everywhere. So you don't see everybody else doing that. So anyway, so this has to be a concerted effort. These decisions are made at the state level. At least in the state of Texas and in other states too. And we have to make a conscious decision. And I'll say this and I'll be quiet. Regardless of whether your children go to public schools or not, your public schools are assets in your community, right? That are the anchors to your community. It used to be a time when the principal at the school was more than just the principal. He had he was like a community activist in a way. So there was the pastor and the principal. And sometimes they were the same person, depending on where you grew up.
I'm going to tell y'all this. Listen, in the Dallas area, I went to Dallas Lincoln for 2 years. I didn't finish there because I went to magnet school as well. But we had this teacher, actually this principal, named Napoleon Lewis. He was Joe Clark before Joe Clark. And when I say that he was Joe Clark before Joe Clark. Kids skipping schools, he'd ride around in a van, scoop them up and bring them back to school. He knew the mothers and the grandmothers, and he knew everybody in the community. So if you were skipping school, he would go down to your grandmother's house and say, listen, your grandson needs to be at school tomorrow. He's up there skipping school. I need you to have a conversation with him when he comes home. He was that kind of guy. And you're talking about those communities. And recently in Dallas, we had a principal at Woodrow Wilson who had enough. our Black and African American kids were underperforming, and she decided to pull them to the side, and people got upset with her. And I actually supported her because I definitely understand what she was doing. Some people are like, oh, she's shaming them, she's this and that. No, 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 no. She cares enough to the point where she's been in education for 20 years to actually say something about what she saw, what was going on. And so when it comes to public schools, we definitely have to take more control over what we're doing, what we are doing in our public schools. Having people come over and take over school districts basically nullify the fact that you have already elected your school board members. So I want you to think about this for a minute. You elect your school board members and the whole community, let's say vote 5, 7, 8, or 9 of them in there. Then all of a sudden, the Texas education person, Mike Miles, comes in and says, you know what, y'all just not doing well enough. Don't worry about your elections. We're going to come run that for you. That's not how democracy works. And people need to understand that. And people need to understand what they are doing. They are basically nullifying your vote and your power to choose what happens in your community. How is somebody all the way in Austin going to know what's happening at the corners in my community, the struggles that I have in my community, the unique circumstances that are in my community? I elected somebody to represent me. Why does he get to come down here and nullify that? And we need to start talking about how that happens and prevent that from happening in the future.
Yeah, I agree with that 1000%. You know, this election cycle, I'm not calling it an election. I'm calling it a correction. And it's a correction because what we're seeing was not only predicted, it was forecasted. It was public information. You know, that, for example, Project 2025, there was a move to actually disinvest in and defund public education, number one, and really push vouchers. And that's exactly what has happened in the state of Texas. We just passed a voucher program that puts about $1 billion into homes. Now, on the surface, it sounds good. And the way it works is it says, hey, you know, it's called, the term they're using is parental choice. However, parents have always had a choice. You know, if you didn't like where your kids were, there was a way to move from one school to another. You weren't locked into these bad schools. So there was a lot of things that could be done, is what I'm saying. There was a lot of things that could be done. But with that aside, what you're now able to do is apply for what's called an education savings account, an ESA, and get money, basically, to help you pay for private school to the tune of $10,000. Now, like I said, it sounds great on the surface. However, when you take a look at what the average cost of public school is, private school is, that's not enough. Okay, that's not enough. And just to be fully transparent, I believe what you will see, and just as you've seen in Arizona, just as you've seen in Florida, what you see is two things. Number one, you see people who were already sending their children to public schools, to private schools, getting the vouchers, which is basically a welfare program for wealthy people, number one. Number two, you'll see also private schools raising their tuition, which actually makes perfect sense. I mean, my point is, if I know that you can get, you know, $10,000 to help you pay for the tuition, and you were paying it last year, you know, let's say it was $20,000 and you paid $20,000 last year, and I know you can get 10 from the government, why not raise it to 30? I mean, that there's nothing stopping me from doing that. So my point, and the last thing, and here's the kicker with the vouchers. The question is, where's that money come from? In the state of Texas right now, it's based on attendance. So when you take a kid from that public school, you're taking the money from the public school, right? You're taking the money from the public school. So the already underfunded program is even being more underfunded, right? And the last thing I'm going to say about the voucher program, and I encourage you guys to take a look at this, but the first there was an attempt to institute a voucher program in the state of Texas, I think back in the late 50s, if I'm not mistaken, right after Brown versus the Board of Education. Brown versus Board of Education, to make a long story short, you guys know what it is. Basically, it says separate but equal, and for all practical purposes. Look, you know, if the black parents are paying taxes, right, towards schools, and their kids have to go to these schools, then the books over here have to be just as good as the books over there. And the gym over here has to be just as quality as the gym over there. And we know that wasn't happening. And it gets to the Supreme Court. But here's the issue. In the state of Virginia, right, which was the center of that case, they shut their school system down. Period. They closed it. And so what that left was now you had white children who couldn't go to school. So what they did was they had segregation academies. We call them private schools today. Segregation academies, right? And that meant that we could choose if we educated your child or not. If your child was not Catholic, if your child was not Baptist, if your child was, if we were a boys' school and your child was a girl, if we were a girls' school and your child was a boy, whatever criteria we wanted to come up with. And for the record, I have no problem with you setting these things up, right? My concern is that you should not be using private dollars to pay for it. Okay, I have zero problem with you going to private school. Like I said earlier, I served on the board of a private school. Private schools serve their purpose, okay? But public schools have to be funded, and they must be funded fairly and not to the detriment, right? We can have private schools, and they should not be a detriment. They should be a complement to our private school system, and that's where they were. That's the way it was meant, and that's just not happening right now.
So, do you think that this whole entire thing is also going to feed into like the school to prison pipeline? And what do you think? And what are your thoughts as far as crime in Texas and fighting crime and how that should be handled?
Well, here's what I do know: either we're gonna fund the schools or we're gonna fund the prisons. I know that.
And you're right about that completely.
Yeah,
I know. Listen, I'm mainly a criminal defense lawyer, so I definitely understand that you can either invest on the front end or you can pay on the back end. Which one you want to do?
Right. Think about it like this: kid in the 4th grade going to a subpar school, underfunded, doesn't quite learn how to read. He goes to the 5th grade, they pass him on to the 6th grade, 7th grade. He can't read. He gets disgruntled with school because who wants to go a place where they're being unsuccessful and failing, right? So he acts out in class every day because, hey, he's growing up. He wants to be seen, right? But he can't be seen for his straight A's, right? He has D's and F's, okay? And there's no extra support in the schools because they barely can pay the teachers. So they can't necessarily pay, the tutors, the people who can come and give that other support, right? This is the person that decides, you know what, it might make sense for me to go out and do something different. But he can't go to college because he doesn't have the background, can't go to the military. What are his options? So my point is, when you underfund your schools, you are literally preparing them for prison. Most people that are in prison are illiterate, a large number of them, right? And that's one of the number one driving factors, okay? So educate your children, right, so that they have options at the end of when they graduate. And I think that's what we should do. And the last thing I'm going to say, in a state like Texas where we have the money, then it becomes criminal. Let me say this. I've heard our president say, well, you have these people coming from Somalia or Ethiopia, which we just canceled their TSP status, right? And they're coming from shithole countries. Let me be clear with you, okay? If you are in a country with poverty and you can't educate your kids, that's because you're in a country with poverty. If you got $29 billion in your rainy day fund and you don't invest in your kids, that's a shithole country. That's a shithole country. To have the money and not invest it, that's what makes you a shithole country. Not that you don't have it, but you don't care. You disinvest in your own children. And let's be clear, those private schools, I encourage you to go look at the enrollment. The enrollment of those schools don't quite look like me. There are some outliers. There's one or two there. For the most part, unless you can throw a football or dunk a basketball, unfortunately, I guess what I'm saying is many of these private schools scrape off the top of public schools. The athlete, the really, really, really brilliant kid. But what about the C student? That's what we need to focus on.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. And people don't understand what happens, and when you do that and you think about that, right? So you scrape off the top, you get your best students, you get your best athletes, you get your your cream of the crop, and you take them out of public schools. Now the public school scores are lower because you just took our best away from us to even balance it out. Not only did you do that, that particular student, and sometimes being around other smart kids can bring some of the other kids up because you start to mentally push each other. And so people need to understand is that they don't want to invest in our kids. This is a public school, everybody can go. You give them the vouchers, then what they do is they go to a private school. You got to get in, you got to apply. They can take a certain amount of us, and they don't have to take more of us than they want to. And they're taking the money that was in a public school. So you can kind of cherry pick who you educate. It's a situation upon which they'll open the kitty up to do that, but they won't open the kitty up for public schools. And that's the thing that everybody should wake up and see. When it comes to vouchers, they'll probably dip into that 29 billion and go and give it to them. But when it comes to public schools, we can't even. How many teachers do I know that are paying for supplies out of their pockets, paying for pencils out of their pockets, feeding kids out of their pockets, using their gas to get kids home after sports events? It's too many to count.
right.
And so these are the types of things that you got to really start thinking about. And people don't understand it's one little thing after another little thing after another little thing that becomes a big thing.
Right. You know, um, and I see a question here. I don't want to get too far from what we're talking about. We're talking about Black political power. You know, uh, the largest number of African Americans in the country, Texas has the largest number
We do.
of Black people. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
I know
now,
stats got to be wrong.
yeah. So we have the largest number of Black people in the state of Texas in any other state. Now, of course, when
Yes.
you want to look at just overall density, states like Mississippi, states like in places like District of Columbia, obviously, right? But here's what when I think about Black political power in Texas, it's unorganized and unutilized, right? Unorganized and unutilized. And how do we know this? I'll give you an example of this, right? Because a congressman from Texas is able to go national. Not a congressman from Mississippi, no offense. Not a congressman from Virginia or Maryland, where you have a lot of wealthy Black people. A congressman from Texas, right, is the one that literally goes on the Jimmy Kimmel show, that literally turns every issue into a national issue, every last single one of them. Jasmine Crockett, as a congressperson, turns any issue she talks about into a national issue immediately. Now, why is that so important? That means that whatever's going on in Texas, when this particular person opens her mouth, people in California heard about it. People in Minnesota heard about it. Now, why am I saying that? I'm saying that the question was around Black political power. My point is, we actually you have it in your hands, right? Now, one thing about your elected officials, you do have to get behind them. You do have to support them, more importantly, and you do have to hold them accountable. Okay, you do have to hold them accountable. But what I saw in November of 2024 is we decided to stay at home.
We did. And you know what? I want to talk about that because I had conversations around why we stayed at home. And I had a lot of conversations with a lot of brothers, a lot of men, a lot of Black men. And the taboo subject is talking about why Black men didn't go to the polls. The thing that hurt me the most is we just don't want to support our women and we're hating on Black women. That's the thing that really bothered me the most. And my answer to all of that is 92% of Black women vote Democrat.
Right.
At least between 82 and 84% of Black men are voting Democrat. So how do you have an election where you specifically do not speak to, until we started complaining, you don't speak to your second most loyal, strongest voting bloc.
Yeah.
In what world, in what election, in any place across the world does that happen?
Texas.
Texas, America.
Yeah.
And when we start talking about those things, you know, it was almost shut up. And if politics were basketball, it would have been like shut up and dribble. And that's what we were being told. And
Right.
my answer to that is our Democratic Party had a blind spot because two things were happening. Number one, African American men were not getting to the polls in the numbers that they had been in the past.
True.
Number two, the ones that were going, some of them were crossing the aisle because somebody over there actually said something to them and we didn't.
Right. Right.
And that's the conversation that I've tried to have with people, but it becomes a taboo subject because people don't want to talk about that, but they need to talk about that because let's be honest, and DJ Genesis to tell you, when Jasmine first ran here in Dallas, I took her to South Dallas.
Hmm.
When she first came to the city and got him, she didn't know a lot of people in South Dallas. I should be, and granted, the reason why I love her is because number one, she came. She went in the midst of Dixon Circle, my community, which is one of the roughest neighborhoods in the community. She did ring a whole boxing, celebrating the kids when she was running for House District 100. When she first ran,
Okay.
I
Right.
went through there with her, and I'm glad that she did that. But you have to have people that are willing to do those types of things. Get in the community, talk to the people,
Mhm.
get the voters out. She wasn't the chosen one, somebody else was. But
Right.
she got out there and she worked. What the Democratic Party is going to have to do, if she is going to contend, they're going to have to get the vote out, especially in the African American community.
Sure.
And they're going to have to get between 88 and 92% black men voting back again with the Democratic Party. And they're going to have to get black men to the polls if she's going to stand a chance.
Right. I'm glad you said that. What I hear you saying is basically we're talking about turnout, and for the most part, you hit the nail on the head. There's a blind spot. Let's be because let's be very transparent. You know, I run as a Democrat, Democratic top nominee, but I'm also, there are people making decisions, right? And like you said, they just overlook us, and they take us for granted.
Bingo.
I have to tell you though, I feel something different. Okay, I feel something different. Now this is not a guarantee, right? But what I hear Congressman Crockett saying is, I'm gonna go talk to those people y'all didn't talk to. That's what I'm hearing, right? That's what I'm hearing. It would be nice if that happens. I expect that to happen, at least in the primary. That's probably what's going to happen for her to win in the primary. But just to give this primary some context, right? This will be the most exciting Democratic primary in 30 years.
It will be.
It'll have the largest Democratic turnout in 30 years. Now, there's also this thing about, well, why should I vote for her? I think we look at this wrong. I really do, right? My point is, you're not giving her anything, okay? And I'm just using her as an example, right? When you hire, let me use the right term. When you hire an elected official, you're not giving them anything. They're going, you already sent the money. Your money is already in Austin. Your money is already in DC. So the only question is, are you going to have some say-so about your money? You've already put in on it, okay? If you get a paycheck and you look at it, they have taken out federal. They've taken out FICA. They've taken out already. So the only question is, I guess what I'm saying is, you're not doing her a favor, whoever you vote for, you're not doing them a favor. What you're doing is picking someone to go talk for your interest on what you're going to do, what's going to happen with the money you already sent.
And that's the beautiful thing about it. What we have to understand, you either going to pick to change how that's done, or you going to continue to allow what's been done for the last 30, 40 years to continue to happen. That's your choice. Do you want to do something different, or do you want to do the same thing and continue to go down the road where you're getting stepped on? And that's the answer. And I've been assured by her that she is definitely going to talk to black men specifically. She's going to talk to the people that other people are ignoring, because she definitely understands, especially in these urban areas, she's going to have a hell of a turnout. And she knows that. And I think that if you are going to run for an office like that, a statewide office like that, you're going to have crazy numbers in places like Dallas and Houston and the surrounding suburbs to offset what's going to happen in rural Texas.
Correct.
And the big old argument, and I've had conversations with people about this. I was talking to one of my friends. He was like, well, you know, the people in rural Texas ain't going to vote for her. And I was saying, to be honest with you, they're not going to vote for any Democrat. Period. They'll either stay home or they'll vote for Trump.
That's right.
And there needs to be an understanding of who that rural voter is and what they're doing. I mean, they're standing by Trump right now, even though he's saying some of the most vile, despicable things about Rob Reiner that I've ever heard a leader of a free world say. They're not saying a word. They're okay with it. Right. And when you have people that are willing, and I'm gonna tell you, it's very telling, when they will allow somebody to speak like that about Rob Reiner, what do you think they care about you? They care nothing about you. Right. And so at the end of the day, I actually think what she is doing is she has decided, hey, you know what? The way to win is to run it up in the city to get the people who are here out, as opposed to trying to go to rural Texas and get them to come over to the other side. And I definitely understand that, because I think in the past, what I thought Beto O'Rourke did, he went all over the state. And see, this is what people don't understand, right? That man went to every single county in the state of Texas in that damn truck he was in.
Right.
And he ran against Ted Cruz. And Beto, very well spoken, very energetic, very, modern, great guy. What happened? Didn't win, did he?
No.
So why would you do that again?
Right.
He did it. So at the end of the day, what I think Jasmine, and I can't speak for her like that, but what I think she has decided to do is, hey, the votes are there. The Hispanic folks, me and Tyler, we're going to go at it, but even if he loses, they'll vote for me and rather vote for Trump, because Trump is pushing their folks out, disrespecting their folks. So if she can get her vote out in high numbers in the African-American community in the city or in the urban areas, or more the liberal urban areas, she can get high numbers there. She feels like she can offset probably what's happening in the other parts of the state. Because honestly, what I feel in Texas, that there has been an attack on the cities. I view it, and what you just said, there has been an attack on the cities. And what pisses me off, the rural areas could not survive unless they had city money.
Right, exactly. Dallas, Houston, Austin, San Antonio, El Paso pays for everybody else. And this is all I'm going to say, right? You have donor cities in a welfare state.
Mm-hmm.
Take the 9 million people out of Dallas, take the 9 million people out of Houston, take Austin, and literally Texas goes away.
Oh, it would collapse. Right. And it's what you said. And we have to stop being food for the rest of the state.
Exactly. Here's how I'm looking at it in my race, right? Right now, we got to stop playing an away game. We got to turn this into a home game.
See, I say that all the time. I love what you just said. Right. Quit playing them away games.
Don't stop playing away game. Away game, when you go, you don't have a band with you, and you don't have your cheerleaders. It's just the football team.
But right? Do you watch The Wire? Do you watch The Wire?
No, I don't.
There's a show called The Wire, and Barksdale told Idris Elba, "Did I tell you about playing them away games?"
Right. Do not play away games. What's been happening? Exactly. The Democratic Party has been playing an away game. Right. Now, why am I saying that? It's because you've been over trying to get people who ain't gonna ever come over to you. when you have, like I said, the largest number of Black people of any state, number one, who pretty much are loyal to a fault. I mean, you hadn't given them no good reason to vote for you, and they still rock with you. So, so how we turn it into a home game? Number one, it's real simple. We just start talking to people. That's number one. But more importantly, I think it's important that and this is the shift I'd love to see in especially in African American people. Stop thinking about this as you're giving your vote. You gave your money to somebody. Think about it like this. Let's say we all put in on it. You know, I put my $5 in, you put your $5 in, right? And then somebody else put their $5 in, okay? And then you let me go to the store and order the food. That's not fair, right? Don't you want some say so? You should. I got the money. And all I'm saying is let's hire people. If we can't go to Austin and if we can't go to DC ourselves, let's hire somebody that we think will look out for our best interests. And that's what we have to do.
And then that's what it comes down to. We have to stop laying down and stop trying to appease a group of people that are just not going to. Exactly. They're unappeasable. Right. They're not coming here. They don't want anything to do with you. Right. As you just, and they've shown you that. And like I said, that Beto O'Rourke, that run of his, where he literally drove to every county in Texas, and just I want you to think about how crazy that is to begin with.
Right, that is
insane.
Yeah, yes, it is.
It's insane and
expensive,
and it's time consuming and it's tiring. This man went every single place. I mean, and so you have to think about that. And you have to look back and say, how many registered voters are there? If we get our people out, can we win? And as opposed to, can we get them to cross the aisle? No, they're not crossing the aisle. They'd rather starve than vote for some of us on this side. Sure. And that's true. That's the truth.
Right.
And we have to understand it. And it's nothing. And I always tell people, they have a right to do that. But let them do it. Sure. That doesn't mean we sit here and continue to try to pull people out of the fire, and they still want to be over there and get burned. If you know they'll pull you in the fire with them if you're not careful.
Sure, right.
So at the end of the day, what you should do is understand that, hey, look, we have the numbers. If we can get the votes out, how can we get our vote out so that we're picking the food as opposed to just giving money to people that are going to buy pork and we don't eat pork?
Right, literally.
So now we're starving.
Because that's exactly what you have right now. When I'm asked about this whole red state, blue state thing, I say that Texas is a beige state, meaning that people just don't come out and they just don't, we just don't vote. When I think about here's a good way to think about it. Because we say Texas is a red state. And here's what we're saying. We're saying it's run by Republicans. That's what we're saying. It's run by Republicans. But where does the money come from? Dallas, Houston. It comes from the blue places, right? Texas is being held up by Democratic. Well, it used to be a Democratic mayor in Dallas, but you understand what I'm saying, right? For all practical purposes, Democratic-run cities in Dallas, Democratic-run cities in Austin, Democratic-run cities in San Antonio, Houston, Democratic-run cities in Corpus Christi, Democratic-run cities in El Paso are holding up a red state legislature, a red lieutenant governor, and a red governor. Okay, you see the problem there?
Exactly.
My point is that the foundation of Texas, and the reason that American Airlines and all the other companies want to come here, they don't come here because they want to be in Texas. They come here because they want to be tied to this 9 million people in Dallas and 9 million people in Houston, which makes perfect sense.
And people need to understand that and understand how to harness the power that, unfortunately, y'all, I'm a little under the weather tonight. I'm going to have to go lay down. But listen, man, I'm going to continue to listen to this podcast. It was great talking to you, and you definitely have a great understanding. Hey, man, go vote for Detrick Deburr. He knows what he's talking about. Yeah, I'm already a fan of yours, man. I'm definitely going to have to get you something. And, man, good luck with the race, man. I hope that you are successful in every endeavor that you choose to become a part of. Okay, brother?
Thank you so much for your support. Thank you.
Thanks, man.
So pretty much, I guess I'll kind of circle this up. If that's okay, we can wrap this up.
Yeah, you know what? I just wanted to. That was a great exchange. I'm glad because I really thought it was important to bring another uh, co-politician up. Person that's ran. Because we want to show that we support each other. And I'm
Sure.
so happy to see another black man supporting another black man in politics that is out here trying to do it. And I think that was beautiful, a beautiful exchange, and then also to get like to bounce each other's uh knowledge off of each other. So I want to give a shout out for Calvin for
Yeah.
uh for taking my charge and say, come up, please come up to Calvin and support our brother Detrick, because at the end of the day, we what I'm saying, we need to show solidarity,
Sure.
with our sister Jasmine Crockett and all and running. A lot of times what's going on is that she's being demonized. Everybody has kind of came against her with
Mhm.
her run. How has it been? What are some of the pitfalls in your campaign, and what can we do to really support and help you?
Sure. Right. Well, I mean, I'm being I'll be transparent. We talked about like Beto going all around the state. If you'd be amazed at how expensive it is actually to run a race in a state like Texas. Just to give you an idea, in my previous run, my opponents spent $1.4 million. Right, $1.4 million is what they raised. I do think, with that said, we're going to have to do some campaign finance reform. I don't think that kind of money is necessary. But you know what, though? It's interesting, though. When you're trying to push a lie, it gets expensive. When you're telling the truth, it's not nearly as expensive.
Right.
With that said, though, we still have to knock on doors. We still have to talk to people. And let me say this, because I don't want to make this about Jasmine Crockett. This is about you. This is about you. This is your state. This is your county, wherever it is. This is your city. These are your schools that your children go to. Okay.
Right.
And so you have the ability in March in the primary and in November in the general to decide and hire, okay, the people who are going to manage your money that you are already going to give them. And since you're going to give them, if I were you, I want to know who's managing my money. I want to know that person sees the world the way I see the world. I want to know if I pick up the phone, I can call them. I want to know where they go to church, how they think. And for the record, we don't have to always agree. That's not what I'm saying, right? We don't have to always agree, but we have to be agreeable. And there are certain people who who at this point, unfortunately, they're not even being agreeable. It's about being right and being wrong, and that's where we are right now. So right now, what I've launched is what I call the Do the Right Thing campaign. Okay, and my campaign, that's what we're going to do. Now, I can hear people say, "Well, what does that mean? Do the right thing." Republicans would say this is the right thing, and Democrats would say this is the right thing, and libertarians would say this is the right thing. And let me tell you what I'm going to use as my criteria. We're going to do the most good for the most people. Just that simple. We're going to do the most good for the most people. Now, I know that almost sounds kind of trite, right? But my point is that there is a way to build effective policy by simply doing the most good for the most people. That is possible. Okay? That is very, very possible. But it has to be intentional. It has to be what you lead with. Okay, you can't get down there and then try to say this is what. No. You're gonna have to come from that perspective. So I say our primary goal is to simply do the right thing. And for the first time since 1994, okay, people who are primarily running with the Democratic Party have the best chance in years to flip seats in Texas and to win a statewide race for the first time since 1994. Okay, we are already seeing all the signs that Democrats are making up about a 12, 13 point difference across the board. It has really nothing to do actually with what Democrats are doing. It's having more to do with what with what's happening out in the country, pretty much. Trump policies, many Republican policies, right?
redistricting, and people are saying, you know what, I think you're overcooking my grits right now, basically, as my daddy would say. And so we're simply going to do the right thing. And so the way that you can support us, number one, I encourage people to go to my website. It's www.deburrtexas.com. That's deburrfortexas.com. Number one. Number two, you can find us on the web, Google us or whatever. But and more importantly, you can give. We need financial support. Let me be very clear, right? $5, $10, anything that matters. Because you know, when I started, I talked about my team. Is that correct?
Yes, you told me about the team. I don't think they've heard about the team.
Right. And my point is that as an elected, as a person running for office, you don't do this by yourself, right? There are people around me, and those people have to be taken care of also. And so if you, so one, I'm asking people to make sure you're registered to vote. Number two, send us $5, $10 or something to say, hey, we support you, right? So that we can give somebody a t-shirt or something when they go knock on a door for us, and so that we can invite people out and go talk to them. So we need money raised, number one. We need volunteers, number two. And we need, more importantly, we need you to literally, not only you go vote, get your friends and family go vote too. This is an opportunity that if we do the work, we can win. We can definitely win.
Well, this was a great show. I appreciate you coming out and sharing your knowledge. I mean, just talking to you on the phone, there's so much more that could be said. But I wanted to make this very short and simple and sweet, and really just promote that your campaign. One day we're going to get you on here to really break things down when it really comes down to, I mean, just politics in general, like the whole of it all. Because I mean, you are a breadth of knowledge. I've talked to you on the phone, and man, you know, 1 hour doesn't even give it justice about how much you know about the inner workings of the political structure of America. So one day we had to bring you back, and I wanted to, at least just have a fellow person that ran here with you to support you, because at the end of the day, it's a very hard thing to run and to try to raise the amount of funds when you're against people that have millions of dollars behind them. Yes. And so I wanted to at least try to show, listen, you have other brothers and sisters that are behind you, and show some solidarity, and we can all do this, and we all come together. Without further ado, I just want to thank you so much for being here. Let's get some final words from you, and then we'll just wrap this up. Thank you so much for being here. This is Alchemizing Energy. This is DJ Genesis. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. At the end of the day, this is your country. This is your state, your county. I like to say your city, in your neighborhood, you're in your home with your family. It's about you and your family. There are people who are making decisions about you and your family today, right now. And you have a responsibility to make sure that your family is taken care of, looked after, have everything they need. We're going to, not even we, I'll say it this way. It's important that you take those initial steps to choose people, to pick people who will either do the things that you do the things that you need done to protect your family, right? And more importantly, forward the agenda of your family, and or protect your family from harm. Okay, so pushing your agenda as much as possible, but also making sure that your children are not harmed. That's the way, that's how we think about it. We don't have to like them. We don't have to love them. These are people who we send to office to either push our agenda or make sure that the agendas that are out there don't hurt us. Okay. And let's just think about it like that. And that's exactly what we're going to do. With that said, I please reach out to me on the web or what have you. I'm at detrickdeburr.com on the IG. I love to interact with people and get to know people. And more importantly, I look forward to inviting you all down to Austin where we get the work done. Thank you very much.
Just when I thought I couldn't find my way out, yeah, I search the God in me to find my way out. I know it can seem way out, but the Creator flows to and through me from way out. I'm talking way out, way out. Yeah, yeah, yeah. See, if you believe in the God